Welcome to the HR Hot Seat, where we get real about the people's problems that keep leaders up at night. I'm your host, Lisa Toe from Talent Harbour, and today I'm joined by Erez Harel. Erez works in Vancouver at a large and diversified construction company, which operates in both Canada and the United States. In his role, Erez leads a team of HR business partners, and they are responsible for executing national HR programs and local people initiatives efficiently and effectively, while partnering with the broader HR team to ensure consistent delivery of overall HR services. Erez and his team strive to deliver tangible business value, foster a deep understanding of the businesses that they support, and maintain a strong focus on continuous development, both for themselves and for those around him. Erez has over 20 years of HR experience in construction, aviation, forestry, marine, and banking. He has a Bachelor of Science in Psychology from the University of Calgary, an MBA focused on organizational behavior from the Schoollick School of Business at York University in Toronto, and he has a CPHR designation and is change management certified in ProSci. Erez has had some key milestones throughout his career, including project managing the implementation of an outsourced employee discount program for a large financial institution in Toronto, which is still being used today. He also has been an HR lead on significant change management initiatives, including Chapter 11 bankruptcy for a global aviation company and a shared services transformation for his current employer. Erez is married and has a 16-year-old daughter and 13-year-old son, and he loves to spend time with his family, their dog Ruby, and go to the gym and spend time outdoors in beautiful British Columbia, BC. Welcome to the HR Hot Seat podcast, Erez. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Lisa. It's such a pleasure to be here, and looking forward to this. It should be a lot of fun.
Awesome. And I might say right off the bat, I noticed something different about you. The last time I saw you,
Yeah.
you didn't have this wonderful mustache. Can I
Oh,
hear a
thank
little
you.
bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it is November, and I've been actually participating in Movember for the past 10 years, and our company is very involved as well, and we've raised a lot of money. So really, it's raising money and research and awareness for men's health. So different aspects of different cancers and just overall men's health and mental health and depression as well. So just where during the month of November we really take this seriously and have fun at the same time with our fancy mustaches. So yeah, it's been good.
Awesome, Erez, and you look fantastic. So thank
Oh,
you for
thank you.
contributing to a great cause. All right, so let's dive right into it. Maybe we can start at the beginning. So what pulled you into HR? Did you choose HR or did HR choose you?
Well, that's a really interesting question because I tend to think about this from time to time, and when I kind of extends back to university when I first started my undergraduate degree. To be honest with you, going into university, you had this very thick calendar that showed all the various courses and options that you can join in. And I found it a bit overwhelming. And so what I decided to do at the time was, okay, I'm going to go for a program of, a very structured program that lasts 4 years and all the courses are laid out for you. And I thought for me, that was the best. But really over time, I realized, this is not kind of resonating with me and I'm not able to be my best self in this course. And things aren't going well when you ask people in your course, do you really enjoy this? And they say yes, and you don't. So it's time to kind of reflect and look at something else. So I did take all of my a lot of my credits and actually pivoted and moved it to a psychology degree and studied psychology. But the truth of the matter is, to get from that point where I was not necessarily in the right program to a program where I was very happy and I really enjoyed it, it took a lot of time. And I think the big message for me is just a lot of self-reflection, taking the time to slow down and think about, like, what matters to me, where are my values, where, what comes naturally to me, and how can I really spend a lot of time on that. We all have skills that sometimes come naturally to us that not to others, and we think, what, we kind of discount it. I don't think we should be doing that at all. Like, my area of was where I really saw myself was working with people, the psychology, especially on the organizational behavior side, and my interest in business. So once I kind of pivoted, that opened some doors. I worked for an HR I worked at the HR department at my university following an informational interview with them. They never really see students going in there. So I went in, I was interested, asked some, had some behavioral interview questions and got a summer internship from there. And then from there, I volunteered for an MBA student in organizational behavior. So it just really opened doors for me. And I really felt that time of my life was kind of jumping from one lily pad to another of kind of academic work and just work in general. So yeah, it's been a good story. It was tough at first, but I'm glad I kind of went through that process and been doing HR for more than 20 years.
Amazing. And you haven't looked back since.
No, I haven't. It's been great. I mean, HR is so diverse that you really can create just a career in that area and in different industries. And so it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, amazing. And so, with the 2 decades of experience, what would you say is one outdated hiring best practices that you've seen across companies? And what would that be if you were to eliminate that one thing? Or what would be a smarter way or a smarter
Yeah.
approach?
Well, I think maybe an outdated hiring practice, some companies should really look at is, this multi-layer interview. You know, and first of all, when you have, maybe a senior level role or something you need to look at very carefully and get a lot of buy-in, absolutely it makes sense to have multi-layers of interviews. But really use that sparingly and you should be very intentional when you do interview. Like, do you actually have to have multi-layer interviews for some of the more junior roles? Maybe not, right? So be adaptable. I think that's really make sure when you are doing these interviews and you schedule it, be intentional. Like, what are we trying to get out of this interview? I think is really important. And make sure like the deciders or the people who have the authority to make decisions are part of that.
Mhm.
And it's so important because the candidate is watching, they're experiencing this, they're spending their time, they're thinking about it. So that really kind of displays your culture is on display. As an organization with these people with people who are applying and our reputation and so on. So really important to be intentional from a best practice perspective and be aware. And the other thing I would also add is some companies tend to say, look, you need X years of experience to do this job, and it's locked in on that. And some companies are very kind of fixated on that. And I think, if you really want to bring in a diverse pool of candidates and kind of widen that net, I think you have to kind of look at how can we maybe, if someone doesn't necessarily have all those years of experience, can you do some skills based assessments? Can you really kind of dig into what they are capable of doing? So maybe structure the interviews with problem solving, testing adaptability, and so on. Because I mean, if you're just locked into those years, you're really kind of doing yourself a disservice. So those would be two areas I think where we really kind of need to move away from.
Absolutely. Very well said. And alongside that, what would be the most important leadership traits companies should be developing, especially in today's world?
Well, when it comes to leadership traits, that's a really good one, right? Because I've worked with a lot of leaders, and you just know, like the good leaders, many of them have very similar characteristics. So you think like relentlessly disciplined, kind of focused on the end goal, absolutely very important, and very strong leaders have that. Financial and business acumen and understanding of how money is made and how money flows through the company, critically important. Like these are all, and kind of the business model and how that company sits within that environment, obviously very important. But I think one of the biggest differentiators for me is if being able to effectively navigate situations and conversations with people. So basically, can they get to what they need without kind of damaging a relationship, right? And helping people still feel like psychologically safe when they're in that engagement. So for example, there's instances where a leader has to provide constructive feedback on performance management. I mean, some leaders can be the most fantastic, they're great in their position, but they really have difficulty kind of getting into those conversations. So really challenging. I mean, maybe they'll put someone in training, or they'll hope that maybe over time this will go away on its own, that performance issue, where of course things tend to get worse. So again, or put them in training, or hopefully that they'll figure it out. I think it's really about being able to deal with the situation, and not burn bridges, and really have that constructive conversation, which is really important. There is this term called kind candor, and I didn't make up that term, but there is a kind of a media titan I follow online, and he came up with that term. He wrote a book called 12 and a half. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk, and the 12 represents kind of like those social skills, those abilities to have, build relationships and maintain them. But that one half is the kind candor, which he struggles with for years. So it's not an easy thing to have to be able to have those constructive conversations that are hard to hear sometimes, and but they're important. And if we don't have them, relationships break down. I mean, your brand suffers. But those who can do it really well, I think, can really go very far within their organization. So that's a leadership trait that I like.
Yeah. Awesome. And what's one training or development practice, as we're talking about this, that you've seen in happen in real life that's actually moved the needle forward?
Yeah. It's a really important one. And I think it can be, doesn't cost anything. It's not like a big rolling out training program. I think it's really about providing immediate feedback to your employees, like with your team. You may have like a development plan that's set up with one of your employees. Maybe they need to work on, certain soft skills or communication, whatever that is, or maybe it's presentation skills or executive presence. I think being intentional, being at those sessions where your employee is delivering that content or is with the executives, and then calling them after and just having that, again, kind candor, that constructive conversation. They know why you're calling. They, from my experience, it's appreciated, and it's not a surprise. And it's because many times, myself included, all of us, we all wonder how are we doing? What's our client feedback? And don't save it for the mid-year check-in or a year end. Provide that immediate feedback, and you can see the needle really move by being there for them. And again, it builds your brand as a leader, someone who cares about people and wants to see them successful. That immediate feedback is so important.
Yeah. Would you say that if you were to give HR teams that one tip, would that be the tip that you give them?
For HR teams, I think that's an important one for sure. I think when you're working with your clients as a business partner, I think that's a very important thing. The coaching, being constructive, and not getting away from difficult conversations. I think that's really important. The other additional thing I would say for HR, and I think about this a lot, and I think we all have a role to play with that, is it's being commercially minded. We're here not just to do kind of awesome HR work, like in terms of creating an HRIS system or rolling out different programs and plans. All of those are critically important. And the business partner group that I work with, we work with our centers of excellence, and we want those to happen. We want to partner with them, but always keep the customer in mind. And that's a big message I have for my HR team. We are here to serve the business and make them be successful, and think about ourselves as owners. Kind of keep the business in mind at all times.
Oh, I love that, Erez. That's it's tough.
Okay.
It's not everybody thinks about that from that perspective, ownership mentality, and it's what a beautiful change when you do put yourself in those shoes and the awesome things that you're able to achieve with your teams. Um, the next thing is around letting people go, which is of course something that is never easy. And within your decades of experience, I'm sure you've gone through your fair share of these meetings, and it never gets any easier. So what's one thing that you think that leaders often get wrong, particularly when it comes to exits, and how should they handle that instead?
Yeah, I think with exits, obviously, look, it's a very difficult situation to be in, and again, something that leaders don't look forward to, and it's a tough one. And I think where it can go wrong is where, again, hoping that things go better, like before the meeting, like in terms of putting off that conversation, as I mentioned before, such to the point where it's like the kettle is boiling and we just need to exit this person right away. I always say, look, if we are going to go through something like this, we have to be human, we have to be respectful, we have to show gratitude. There's a human being and other people being affected by this decision. So it's very important that we do this in such a way where it's just not a surprise for that person. If there's going to be, like, if it's performance related, they should have some awareness. Prior to that, we should have been working with them, managing the performance and so on. But again, if it gets to that point where we do go through the termination, I always spend time with the leader and really pre-brief with them. I think it's really important to, develop a script, talk to them, make sure they're comfortable, because the leader is also, quite nervous. So it's about calming them down, making sure they're ready, not assuming that everyone can just do it because someone's been a leader for a long time. It's a hard thing, right? So it's preparation out of respect for the leader and for the employee, and also roles and responsibilities after the fact as well. Who initiates the termination? How do you announce that to the team? If there's access that you need to be looking at, and even things like outplacement, Lisa, we really see outplacement as a really important part of that, because the point is, look, our goal is to get the message across and mitigate job loss as much as we can. So it's helping them move on and be in a position that works best for them. So I definitely, after that conversation, will spend time with that person and really just kind of orient them to the future and get them around that. And the more you do that, the better, because someone may be at a company 10, 15 years and they'll mostly remember how they felt at that last day, right? Which is really important, that they have that as good a feeling as we can, even though it's a tough situation. Best for the employee, best for the company. It hits kind of all the marks when you approach it that way.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess what I'm hearing you say is basically having that, ensuring that the human element is in place,
Absolutely. Yeah.
because that is what people take away with them when they leave an organization. And from what I've seen, you do that extremely well, Erez.
Oh,
So.
thank you.
All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit, especially in today's world. AI is everywhere right
Yeah.
now. So how do you see AI particularly changing the HR scene in the next 3 years?
It's interesting. HR, I think we kind of are all operating on a day-to-day basis like we always have, but it kind of feels like this thing that's growing in the background, and we don't really have a lot of visibility around it, but you just kind of know it's learning on its own in a way and getting bigger and bigger, and can be a little bit scary. Like, I think all of us kind of know AI through maybe entering something in a search engine like Copilot or ChatGPT, and it's kind of fun and it's interesting and almost a little scary how accurate things can be. But I think, like, just like the internet or just like other uh, technology that has helped us, it can be either scary if you kind of tend to ignore it, or trying to embrace it. So I think it's like anything, we just need to embrace it. And where I think it's going to add a lot of value is things like, turn and type, things that we can maybe get away from some of the more transactional aspects of, say, entering information in HRIS, or creating logs of information, or even like summarizing meetings. Absolutely, we can depend on AI for that, because what that does is it gets us back to the human element, as I mentioned. Like, I want to spend time on my relationships and building those and influencing and so on where I can, and not on the kind of the day-to-day transactional. I also think there's some interesting aspects, in interviewing, like helping with bias reduction when we're interviewing. Like, there's some interesting algorithms that are put into there. So how does that help us find like the right candidate? And it can even be like surveys, like companies will do, like my company as well, will do large surveys. There's a whole host of information. So where we can use AI to kind of come up with really actionable recommendations that's accurate and trustworthy, and that we can really use that in different forums and create content for us and presentations, I think is really helpful. So, and I think just, overall, there's definitely positive ways. I think it's just looking at how we can kind of cut out the transactions and get away from where, maybe making mistakes when we're entering information, and letting us as people focus more on the relationship building and influencing and working with our teams.
Absolutely. No, that's those are great points, because that's what AI can't do, which is the human element, and we can leverage what we can do in on the more kind of administrative things or overall scope. We can leave that to technology. All right, now we're going to go into what's called the lightning round,
Oh boy.
and this is where I'll be asking some fun, quick questions. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready. All right. For the first one is, if HR had a billboard, what would yours say?
Hi, I'm a business guy. I just happen to do HR.
One HR buzzword you'd love to ban forever.
Seat at the table. It's 3 words, and I'll tell you why. I find sometimes with HR, we tend to, like, we're fighting for that seat at the table and we want to be with the business. I think we have to have a bit more confidence as a function. I think we have a lot to contribute and a lot to value. And I think it's kind of focusing on some of the areas that maybe we talked about, where, you want to be in a situation where the business can't afford to not have you at the table, because you come in with those insights and, your coaching and your ability to connect with people. So, seat at the table, let's just focus on doing the right things and we'll get to that seat. That's for sure.
I love that. Amazing. Hiring fast or hiring slow?
Oh, depends, Lisa. It depends.
If you had
I
to pick.
pick. Well, I would say I would say hire slow. I would say hire slow. You have to make sure that you can get a little bit faster when you kind of focus on your culture and you create a brand that people can recognize. So you think of the Teslas of the world and the Apples, they kind of know what your company stands for, and people are clamoring to come to your company. If you can kind of create that model and people are aware of you, you can open your net wider, cast that net, and people will come and you can hire quickly. So we got to do some work behind the scenes, though, to make that happen.
Yes. Culture fit or culture add?
So I'm going to say culture. I'm going to say culture add. We don't want to hire kind of like we're not hiring AI computers here. We're hiring people. So I think again, you work on creating a culture that people know about, both internally and externally. You get people who want to be part of that culture, and once we bring them in, we want people to be themselves and be innovative and bring in their experiences. So yeah, we want to add to the culture. I think is really important. We'll all benefit: employees,
Mhm.
companies, and society.
Yeah. Remote or in office?
Oh, all my answers are it depends, but you know what? I really am starting to see the value of in office, and I think again, if it's the relationships, it's the culture. You're hiring more and more companies are just hiring people that never even had a chance to come into the office and create those connections. So culture is so important, and we're all purveyors of that in our roles. Coming into the office, does it have to be 5 days a week, 365? No, I think there's ways to kind of work around that. I think there's some benefits of a bit of a hybrid, but getting people in and being intentional, having meetings, not just locking yourself in an office and working on your laptop, but having those opportunities to connect are really important.
Yes. And if you could give your younger HR self one piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, I'd probably tell myself, good for you, because it took quite a challenge to get there and away from some of the past areas that I was focusing in. So good for you for doing that. I would just say enjoy the process. The journey goes by very quickly. Keep forming your networks. Spend a lot of time on that, and just enjoy it. It goes fast, and look to getting as many experiences as you can, both in centers of excellence in HR, business HR, and even in the business as well. So just be open to all kinds of experiences is my message.
Oh, all right. Well, that's today's HR hot seat. Huge thanks to Erez for joining us and sharing so many valuable insights. My personal favorite takeaway was earlier when you mentioned about your culture being on display, and so making sure that you're treating people as well as on the way in as on the way out. Feel people remember how they feel, and so just making an impact and having that genuine human touch. That's something that we don't think about every single day, but it makes such a huge impact. So thank you so much for that, for being on today's podcast. If you found this valuable, share it with another HR leader in your network. At Talent Harbour, we believe great companies are built by how you hire, develop, keep, and exit your people. And that's exactly what this podcast is all about. All right, see you next time.
Thank you.